Psychic vampires. Now, psychic vampires we've created through thought forms, and they're really, really old thought forms that basically have been upheld through storytelling, and now Hollywood keeps them up with their movies. Psychic vampires don't drink blood, but they drink vital force energy, and they need a lot to survive. They can be found around homes and can be found in groups, and the occupants of the home could be suffering from low energy, chronic fatigue. So they might not even be actually attached to the people, but feed off the energetic matrix of the house, and this will still affect people. The reason I find they sometimes don't attach to people but hang around the space is because now that we have so much Wi-Fi and other devices, these things can easily move from space to space via these frequencies. They're like highway frequencies as they vibrate at a similar frequency to these things. So I find that these guys, they do love just to hang around and kind of just come in and out of spaces and feed, but they also will attach. But they don't have to, because like I said, they can get enough vital force energy from just hanging around. But if they're hanging around a home, they're definitely still feeding off the energy from the people as well. So they still will start to feel, they'll start to feel low energy, even if they're not quite attached, but still attached to the home. Now, the attaching mechanisms for these are basically they only need a slight weakness in the energetic framework to attach. So this does leave us very susceptible because most people have, a weakness in their energetic framework. There's not many people on this planet at this point in time that have an absolutely strong energetic framework. So we all are still susceptible at some level because, we've all got weaknesses in our energetic framework somewhere. But the more we strengthen ourselves, the more we do the energy work needed, the more we clean up our shadow, the more stronger our energetic framework becomes, and the less and less susceptible we are to these energies. But these energies aren't a very, very dark energy. They are definitely more grey, so they're more lighter than most, but they feed a lot more than most entities. Now, the results in a person if psychic vampires attach, they usually attach more than one at a time. If you find one, the chances are there's going to be more. They do like to hang around together in groups. Because they need so much vital force energy, they can make someone quite sick quite quickly, and this is kind of shows up as mystery illnesses. A lot of people who have got these kind of going on and have an issue and they take themselves off to the doctors, they usually can't find anything really going on. So these things kind of attach, have a feeding frenzy, and then kind of leave someone quite sick without knowing why. And then once they've made the person sick, they'll leave and find another host. Now, these usually end up detaching when they're in hospital. A lot of people who have, these types of entities and they've got quite a lot going on, they'll usually end up in hospital for some reason that nobody knows. And they'll be doing all these tests trying to find out what's going on. And there'll be a point where this energy's fed enough and there's no more vital force energy to feed on because they like it quite high. So once the person gets to the point where they're too sick to have a lot of vital force energy going on, and that's usually when they're laying in hospital trying to find out what's going on with them, these energies will just pack up and leave and go and find another host. And the person recovers and they put it down to some weird virus. So that's very, very common for these energies once they've attached. So these entities are not the ones that someone could really have for years and years. But you can find them jumping in and out of families sometimes. It feels like they're getting more smarter and they don't want to take down their food host all at once. So they're actually starting to adapt, and these guys are starting to learn that by hanging around a family and just jumping back and forth from family members, they're sharing the load. And it's almost like they're recognizing that if they don't take their victim all the way down to the point where they're too sick, that they're able to just jump from a few people, and that's enough for them to keep keep going. It's like they're not taking somebody completely down, so the person's not completely sick, but by sharing the load between 3 or 4 family members, these things can kind of just get enough vital force energy, and the family might just have periods where randomly at different stages somebody feels really tired and not very good, and then they recover, and then the next person might not feel very good, and then it kind of happens. And sometimes I'll find families that these energies are kind of playing that game with, that they've spent months and months in and out of doctors because they just can't find what's going on, because they're feeling as though there's a virus or something going on that keeps coming back and forth. And they'll say to me, the husband went down first and then became better, and then the daughter went down and was a bit sick, and then they became a bit sick, and then they'll just kind of notice this pattern where they're all regularly having these kind of low, almost getting sick type things for a few days, and then they'll be better and the next person will get it. So there seems to be kind of like a little pattern that goes on that some families recognize. Now, they'll usually take themselves off to a doctor and not someone like me, but sometimes, the person might just start to think, nah, this is weird, something else is going on, and they'll, go and seek this type of workout, which is always interesting when I come across these people, because by the time they come to someone like me for clearing, they've already kind of started to work out that something slightly weird's going on, and they're able to give me a lot more information about, what's going on in their life, and I can start to pinpoint more and more how these energies are adapting and changing. Because 5 years ago, I didn't find these energies, being conscious enough to share the load in a way. They were just going in, having a feeding frenzy, and leaving the person very, very sick before going on to the next person. Now, over the last maybe 2 years, especially the last year, more and more people have been coming to me for this type of work, and then we've been finding these energies actually sharing the family. So that's when I started to notice, oh, hang on a minute, these guys are actually becoming more conscious and they're starting to change how they feed, and I find that interesting. Now, usually the family also goes through massive changes because they're having all these issues going on, and if they are starting to kind of feel that they're all being kind of, having moments of not feeling good and it's continuous. Usually these families, they've already started changing their diet, they're taking vitamins, they're doing all these things trying to figure out what's going on. So usually by the time someone comes to you, if this is what's going on in their family, by the time they've come to you for a clearing to see if that works, I bet you any money they've already tried a whole lot of other stuff to try and sort out why they're all getting drained and feeling quite sick and not well in all different types of random situations that continuously go on. Now, these ones don't hibernate. They just physically can't hibernate. They need to be feeding all the time. So these energies you will not find hibernating in anybody. And they're also energies that just won't attach for lifetimes because they like I said, they can't hibernate. They need to feed constantly.